Epik Mellon podcast. Conversations with the real humans behind broadband networks, cybersecurity, and the future of communications. Brought to you by QA Cafe.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Epik Mellon podcast. I'm your host, Jason Walls from QA Cafe. And with me is Massimo Zefferino from
Zefferino.
I don't think I've ever said that out loud.
I know. I think people are very hesitant to say it out loud.
From zfactor. And zfactor is the company that does all of our digital marketing at QA Cafe. But I wanted to talk to Moss specifically for a couple of reasons. One, because he's the one who helped me and convinced me to do this podcast in the first place.
Yes. Yeah.
They have their own podcast called The Angry Designer, which is very good, and you should listen to it.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
also because zfactor has carved out sort of a niche when it comes to digital marketing, specifically around our industry, the industries that I deal with all the time, and many of the companies I deal with all the time. Yeah. And so it's been really cool to talk with him about the specific problems when it comes to branding, marketing, and in our space, and the number of the different experiences you've had working with the different companies and nonprofit organizations in the process. On that note,
right?
because I am funded entirely by QA Cafe, the views expressed by myself or my guests do not reflect those of QA Cafe or its ownership. And even though Massimo is the owner of zfactor, his views are his own.
Mm-hmm. And considering that QA, that we're on retainer with QA Cafe as well, I would say nothing but positive things about QA Cafe as well, right?
See, it's like it's just
everything we're going to talk about today doesn't actually apply to QA Cafe because you guys are all different.
Well, you get controversial enough on Angry Designer anyway, so I'm not even worried.
Yeah, the podcast kind of it's kind of that whole no BS podcast, but it is our take on the space as well.
Yeah.
And I think even with working with you guys right from the start, I mean, again, sugarcoating it, of course, I would bring it down and bring the intensity down a little bit, but I don't think that I've ever actually held back when we talked about your brand and what we thought were the issues with the brand, because these are common things that we see across all industries, but for us, all customers in this space.
Right.
So we, by focusing in on broadband technology companies, mostly in the B2B space, there's so many similarities that you can see that just jump across from it's you could almost just take one and just drop it back in and just guess what? I've already got your marketing plan done.
On that note, Massimo and zfactor have helped us rebrand QA Cafe. So all of the most recent stuff you see on our website, as well as help us with our currently 4 great products that we have, with possibly some more on the horizon. And those are CD Router, the industry standard test platform for broadband gateways and Wi-Fi devices. CloudShark, which is our way to help people work together on packet captures, because it's a very esoteric thing. And being able to work on it as a team and have all your historical data in one place, and do it in a slick UI that is very Wireshark-like, but easier to use than Wireshark, is something we pride ourselves on. And then along with that is our newest product, Packet Viewer, which is basically the guts of CloudShark. That allows you to put it into your own products. So we have a lot of cloud managed networking and cybersecurity folks who already have packet captures, but right now they don't know what to do with them, or they're having people download them and view them in Wireshark, and that's not very secure, and it doesn't really provide a good end user experience. So we made Packet Viewer so people could do that with some very easy to use components. That's very, very simple licensing. And then lastly is Passport, which is our interoperability and connectivity test platform for IoT and smart home devices and other end devices like set-top boxes and all of the things that sync packets rather than route them. Cool. All right. That's the short version. I've been doing the short version for the last few episodes just because, not that things are up in the air, but, we're doing a little shuffle.
Well, I think the short version is actually good. I think you nail it on the head because you hit all the. You actually said some really good things that I don't think I've ever actually heard you say before in the past. So it's kind of.
Well,
I
that's
think
good.
the short version seems to be the concise version,
Yeah.
which is a lot more effective in situations like that because you can just kind of make that statement and then just roll into the benefits thereafter, right? The results people can expect. So good on you on that. See?
Well, and it's changed a little bit, right? So since
Yeah.
we launched Packet Viewer, and we've been rethinking how people use CloudShark. It really is CloudShark really is more for the people working together than it is for the remote packet capture viewing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as we've talked, you and I have talked about product positioning a lot. Like these are the things that we learn when you actually talk to your customers.
Yeah. Why is that so foreign?
I don't know. I don't know. And well, so let's talk about that because you deal, like you said, you have very similar stories
Mm-hmm.
when you
Across the
deal
board.
with the companies in broadband specifically, but it's a technology thing, right? It's a technology thing.
It
And
is. It is. Well, and I think a lot of these companies are well, not I think, I know a lot of these companies just are, they're headed up by technologists, they're headed up by engineers, they're headed up by people who love tech, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are as connected to the human experience, right?
right.
Because emotionally, right, they're about things, right? These people get jazzed up, they get excited, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Oh, it's very
But
important. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it, right?
yeah, I guess you put it that way for sure.
Right.
Good thing, right? But and it's not that you can't do both. Some people, out there, have shown that they actually can flip and flop on both. But I think on the whole, it's safer to assume that if people are really jazzed up about tech, about things, about how things work, there might be less connected to the other side of the world, how to explain it to people, what people are actually looking for, right? That's why you get all these, crazy statements about, oh, we've got so many megahertz for this, or our bandwidth is this. And it's just, well, try to translate that into human
Oh yeah.
terms.
So I wrote an article recently. Oh God, it must have been a month ago.
Yeah.
Really, and I was channeling you while I was writing it about that topic, right? Because even the even the marketing organizations that are out there, right?
Yep.
Like I called out Wi-Fi Alliance and their very cool drive to stop talking about IEEE specs
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
just be like, this is Wi-Fi 6, this is Wi-Fi 7, right? But even that, the end users don't care.
No, they don't.
They don't
It's
care,
like
right?
so, some people ask us, put Wi-Fi 6 on there. It's very important. And I'm like, is it? Is it really that important? Or telling
Right.
people that
I
you
mean,
can
maybe
now
it's important,
connect more devices. You can take your internet further on your property without losing your.
right?
This is what's important.
Well, so that's my question. So you're very often through some of the companies that you already work for, right? Like
Mhm.
Calix and stuff, you end up working with the operators, right? And the
Correct.
operators branding, and
Yes.
they're B2C, right?
Correct.
So you have
Correct.
this layer of indirection where you're trying to provide help to a B2B company that's selling to another company that is B2C, and then getting them to translate that message to the end users. Right?
Absolutely. And there's a disconnect. That's where
Yeah.
it gets difficult. So we're doing that obviously for Calix. We're also doing it for Connexon, who, did acquire us a year and a half ago now. Fantastic company, almost 2 years ago. And same idea. We're trying to translate this message from engineers and what people understand, and their main sell point, of course, was how to bring internet to these communities. But now the challenge is, you've managed to make that B2B sale on how to actually, who to get, let's get the infrastructure in place. Let's build the network. Let's build the access network. Let's get it up and running. Now the focus has to change on the end user, and it's a completely different game because, the challenge is for a lot of people, you're seeing, they're pushing things like, well, you've got 100 megabytes of data right now. You need to get up to a gig. You need 2 gigs of speed. You need 5 gigs of speed. And this is
Spoiler alert, you don't.
yeah. Well, and it's scary because again, it's because ultimately, they're selling the thing, they're selling the mechanism, the thing, just the product, right? Even though, granted, it's a little bit more than that, it's a service. But the reality is, it's like that doesn't make any difference to a customer. We've seen so much more success when you're translating that and being like, hey, you know what? 100 megabytes of speed can get you one movie and you can stream one 4K movie at this speed, right? It takes you this long. You can download this many songs. You can download 1,000 photos. I don't know why you'd want to download. And then you translate that into the other, well, here's how fast you can do it in 1 gig, and here's how fast.
Right.
And it seems like there is this culture that just wants they just want the horsepower. They'll never do it. It's like you see these 80-year-old guys who will buy these 500 horsepower, muscle cars, and they just kind of idle along their country road with them.
Yeah.
But
Well, so I ran into that. Like I ran into that personally, right? Because we have a really good deal in at least where I live, right? Long story short, because Verizon laid a bunch of dark fiber and then left and sold it all off. And no, but it was great because the companies that took over, which is now consolidated, which is now getting bought by somebody else,
which is great though. It's infrastructure that's in place.
They were competing very well with our cable company around here, and I was like, heck yeah, I'll do that. So when COVID hit, I was like, sure, I'll upgrade to a gig. It's only like $40 more, right? It's not 200. It's not $200 more, so I'll upgrade to a gig. But the thing that people don't understand about the internet is that the internet is not that fast.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, you can have a gig to your house, and PlayStation's servers throttle their stuff. So if you're like, oh man, that's awesome, now I can download, now I can download the latest game or whatever. That's 100 gigs, and it'll be so fast. And it's like you queue it up, and it's like, well, you better go do something for 2 hours. But they do it; they throttle on their side, and so that's totally out of your control. That's totally out of your control. And most services are like that, right? Unless it is specifically designed to end to end give you a gigabit per second to what you're doing, that's not gonna
you're
happen.
not gonna see that, right? No, you're absolutely not. I love it because my kids are always telling me how crappy our internet is. And I was like, guys, I think it's the fact that you've got some indie game that you're trying to play at their rate, and their servers aren't the most reliable. Chances are they're using the cheapest budget servers out there,
Right.
But I mean, our internet sucks. Our internet sucks is a common thing I hear in my house.
No, but that's the experience that people have.
Exactly.
And you will never undo that. You will never undo that. So that's the messaging that all these people need to get at, right?
but that's the messaging they don't want to deliver, because that's the truth, right? And if you were to educate people a little bit and let them know, there's more to it than just speed, or there's more to it. It's not as sexy to download, but it's that experience that you have to set the right expectation.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to come back and they're going to call you a liar. They're going to say, your internet company sucks. You promised me all these speeds. And it's like, well, you've got the speeds, but there's more to it than just the speeds.
So are you experiencing that a little bit because what I've seen from the bigger companies, right, is that because you do deal with a lot of tier 2s, tier 3s, right?
Yep.
What we've seen from the bigger companies is that they are getting that, right? And they are starting to compete on reliability, on the best Wi-Fi experience.
So they are. And the challenge is what we're noticing, and this is the sad reality. Reliability, extend your Wi-Fi, they don't seem to have the same impact as
they don't have numbers.
People, right? Like, in the end, it's like, oh, they're saying that I can, I've got more bandwidth. I can put more connection. Why do I want more connected devices? I've only got one phone. They don't realize it's not just your phone. It's not just your computer. It's your tablet. It's every IoT device you have in your house. It's your coffee. Right? Every single device, right? You're getting, your security systems, your phone, everything is going through there. But they're not realizing that. So they just keep translating it to speed. So it is interesting. It's an interesting conundrum that we're constantly experimenting with and seeing what actually, the reliability is great to somebody who's experienced unreliable internet. But to somebody who's always experiencing this, they're just assuming that this is the way it always is. And granted, fiber is great for that. Not everybody has that experience, but I don't know. It's a challenge in that sense.
Yeah, it is.
I think people just need to start using terms that everybody's a little bit more comfortable around. There's this whole new kick about it's not an internet service provider, it's a broadband service provider. And they're using this word broadband, but the problem is it's
so old.
Don't use the word broadband.
No, I did a LinkedIn survey about that a while ago, and most people call it. Well, granted, it's slanted because of who my LinkedIn audience is, obviously.
Fair enough.
But people don't call it broadband.
No,
most people call it internet or Wi-Fi.
which is funny because Wi-Fi has nothing to do with any of this. Let's face it.
No.
This is it's kind of ironic that the symbol for internet is a Wi-Fi symbol.
No, I mean,
Go on
but
it.
that's because of the success of what it did, right? And I remember UC Kiminimi.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm pronouncing his name right. He's one of those like deep Wi-Fi nerds, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had him on the show a while back, and he has a company that does this cool like Wi-Fi mapping stuff. So like he can go to a
Very
site
cool.
and do this stuff and tell you where you need to put your APs, right?
Cool.
You're talking about hilarious stuff like how a stadium with nobody in it is way different from a stadium with 100,000 people in it because we're
Very
a bunch
true.
of bags of water that get in the way of the signal,
Ooh.
right? But one of the things that he was saying is that Wi-Fi is basically a victim of its own success because it is designed to function in the worst environments imaginable, and so it is extremely flexible.
Mm-hmm.
But that's its problem. And so, but because of it, everybody was using it all the time for every single use case. But we're finding that it's not the best for everything. So everything that everybody's doing right now is trying to fix that problem.
Isn't that nuts though? It's come a long way because so our studio, we've got like a 3,000 square foot studio. We've got employees from the very front all the way to the very back. The whole building has been networked because we built it from scratch. So we've got networking everywhere so we could get, the fastest speeds to the computers where people are. Nobody plugs in. Everybody connects via Wi-Fi. We have a gigabit router and it's fast, and we are downloading gigabit files on a daily basis. Not just one of us, all of us. So, this is now how, the technology has gone great. But if I was to even ask, okay, granted, maybe my team might understand how it works a little bit more, but take another agency, they would assume that Wi-Fi is the internet, right? And that's what they're paying for is the Wi-Fi signal. And, and it's like, no, we've had wireless internet, when we didn't have this fiber to this unit. Very different experience than what we're going through right now. Let's just
like you had actual like fixed wireless. Like
we had a WISP, we had a WISP that we had to deal with, and that was a very painful experience. But nobody understood. But the thing is, nobody really needs to understand at the consumer level, and that's the truth, right? You need to be able to sell them and make sure they understand that you're bringing internet to the home. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be connecting the Wi-Fi to their home. Most cases you are. I think the last router I got, it was a wireless router. It was just built in. I just switched over, unfortunately, to one of our big providers. And it was actually a very easy experience. I'm shocked at how easy. It was finally no extra routers needed, all done on an app. And it was the easiest experience so far I've ever had. So they've come so far, but that's what people want because they just want it to work.
They just
want
it to work.
That's it. They don't want to learn how to do it. They don't want to put stuff on videos, walk them through this stuff. And again, because it's just like your phone. They don't care about how simplicity is often complex. It's the most complex. It's more complex, right? To be able to deliver an experience. And that goes for marketing, that goes for technology, right? Like the inner workings of, an iPhone and when people start it up and it just connects for them and it'll find that, the right Wi-Fi, it'll give them their apps. It's so, again, of course, this is to an iPhone audience. I can't say what the Android experience is like, but
it depends.
But again, it's, and how much time, energy, effort has that company built on experiences? They realize that, they're a technology company. They're building products, but they're delivering experiences. And that's the difference. That's what makes, and I know it's so cliche, but that is what makes Apple so special in this space is they make sure that their technology, albeit the engineers that work there are brilliant, but nobody really knows about what the engineers do. They just know the final experience on the other end, which could be part of the user experience, could be the UXers, could be a combination of few. And then, sadly, that's who gets all the glory. So it's pretty challenging in that sense.
Is it so? Is in your experience so far with with your customers, you know how you're saying where you're getting to the point where you kind of understand that it's the same story every time and you can probably replicate it. Is that where it's sort of coming from? Is they,
So So that is the story when it comes to the B2B companies across the board that we deal with, right? The B2B technology companies in our space, whether it's, a company like yours, whether it's a hardware manufacturer, the similarities across those companies are all the same. They
Mhm.
all tend to be, led by technologists, engineers. They love their product. They talk about their product, but that's not how their audience wants to hear about their
Mhm.
product, right? And I think that's the challenge that so yeah, in that sense, we joke a lot about this, that it's almost a carbon copy about you can, almost equally make every one of these companies equally human by, taking the same approach, right? Finding
Yeah.
out, focusing not on the thing, but on the result of the thing, right? And then focusing on that and then making that your unique selling proposition. Don't worry about the fact that you've got incredible, but for a lot of people, it's ego. They don't want to
Yeah.
downplay the technology.
Yeah. No, it really is. It really is. And it's like,
I mean, it's a
so
business.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's our hanging on to the labor theory of value, right? It's like,
Oh, cool.
it's
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
I did a lot of work on this and I think it's cool. Therefore, it should sell itself.
It should sell itself, right? And I mean, you'll get pat in your backs by all your peers. They'll cheer you for this, but that doesn't necessarily translate to dollars and cents to your end user. So
Right.
that's a little tricky.
Yeah. No, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is fun. But we are seeing some interesting similar. I mean, again, I don't agree with this BSP idea. We're using it, and on a B2C standpoint, fine, I understand why the push, but the end user doesn't know what that means. They don't know. They're like, no, I don't want broadband. I want internet, or I want Wi-Fi.
No, and I really think that it's strange because that
Yeah,
term is old. It is an
yeah,
old term because it meant that you were using the full spectrum of the copper wire that's coming to your house. That's all it meant. Like,
yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
interesting. I didn't realize it went that deep.
that's all it meant. You weren't using the voice channel and making sounds to
Anymore.
deliver the
Yeah, yeah.
internet.
Oh, jeez, that's even worse now. I gotta
You know,
get up
that's
a
all it
page
means.
against that. Yeah.
You know,
It's almost to its core. It's like, yes, I get it. You're not bringing the internet to somebody's house. This is what, when it gets to somebody's house, it's just broadband and then it converts into yeah, but customers don't need to know that. They don't need to think that way. We did have some struggles at time with certain people where they wanted to explain that whole process to a customer, right? About how it actually comes from through the access network, and then the signal comes to the house, and then it goes from the house. It gets converted at the house level through this device into your router. And then if you want it wireless, then it goes from the router to this. Dude, customers don't need to know that information. It was overwhelming for them. They just
yeah,
want to be able to plug it in, turn it on, and in as few steps as possible, have access to the internet. That's it, right? That's all
yeah,
they'll ever need to know.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a constant struggle.
yeah. So I mean, have you noticed a difference between like the kinds of operators that you end up working for? Like some of them get it, some of them don't, or
Hmm. It seems like they all equally start at the same place, Jay. They all kind of need to be educated because at the same time, we work with a unique group of operators, and they're this whole new experience of becoming a now a for profit, because a lot of them aren't. A lot of them
oh,
were
right. Some were
cooperatives that were
co-ops. Yeah,
converted, right? So that was the Connexon model, which has been fantastic. So much to learn. Such a great company and what they're doing. But with these people, we're training them how to market. Period. Right? Because they never had to. They never
yeah.
had
They
to.
never had marketing departments, right? Yeah, yeah.
So in this situation, it's actually been great because they're really receptive and they understand it, right?
Oh,
Because a
cool.
lot of these people, right, they come from the same mindset. They're learning about this whole process during the experience. They're not actually, the struggle tends to be with these other, these 10, 20, 30-year-old, BSPs, if you want to call them, who, have started out with DSL, then they maybe went to coax, right? And they're kind of stepping, because they're set in their ways, and that's the challenge. They're set
Yeah,
because there was a point where people didn't know why they needed the internet; they just needed it. And so to try to convince these people about now, well, we got to change our marketing a little bit. You now have competitors. Marketing is done so differently these days. This is a whole other experience altogether, because now it's not just a matter of buying a TV spot or an ad spot on the newspaper and just kind of running with it. right? I
Right.
mean, again, how many people have, cut the cord when it comes to you have to get creative. You have to get creative. And a lot of these people, they're creating these lists, they're building these lists, and they're emailing them. It's become such a process. I mean, selling is it's changed so much in the past
Right.
20 years. It's
Right.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the past 20 years, it's almost like we have the generational things, right? Like when you first learn about marketing, and they teach you about how things were in like the 50s, right? Where
Yes.
telling people the value of a product was all you had to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of feel like it almost needs to get back to that. I'm seeing that it's just a lot more personalized experiences across the
Right.
board, and I think that's the expectation that people want to have anymore. We went through this whole crazy the past 20 years, these last 2 decades. Marketing has changed, technology has changed, how people receive information has changed so much that it's hard to keep up with all this. And it seems like more and more people just want something hand fed to them, they want something explained to them. I will, if I get a referral from somebody I trust, I won't even look elsewhere. I'll take that one, that
Yeah.
versus researching it, because I think it's just we're bombarded with so many messages that I
Right.
think that's key in this situation is just help me find somebody, some sort of referral basis. That's why it's incredible how impactful Google reviews are to a company's success.
Right.
And the sad thing is, they've got a battle because now there's a lot of fake Google reviews, and Google's constantly trying to scrub them and make sure they're verified people. But then there's all these verified farms out there that will just have and they will just go and sell Google reviews. It's a horrible place. It's
Oofta.
I
Really?
know, I know, I
Oh,
know, I
man.
know. This is the dark part of
Uh,
capitalism.
I guess
I know it's
if there's a
disgusting.
market.
I know it's brutal. It's brutal. But I mean, again, they won't get to everybody, right? They're not going to get to the smaller level or the niche companies like, who we deal with on a regular basis. So, one of the first things we do is we try to see what people Google, what their Google reviews are like. We try
Mhm.
to sort through that. We try to give them incentive to have their customers add reviews. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about, a specific product, but it could be about the service. It could be about a specific individual, right? Even in some ways, your Google review could even be based on someone internally at the company saying, hey, you know what? I work for this company, and I just want to say it's an amazing company to work for. I
Interesting.
see so much good that they're doing out there. And, and again, because a Google review is just, it's a total of all experiences.
Right.
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 And
Right. Right.
if
Right.
you think of it that way, as long as you're not trying to hide behind something, it's a good opportunity to take advantage of. Absolutely.
Huh. Huh. Yeah, that's a
Made,
really good
made
point.
you
I
think
never thought
about
of
that
it that way.
one, right?
I did. Yeah. Well, no, because I'm always hesitant about which channels to use, right? And obviously for B2B, depending on what it is Google the best one, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Especially for something super niche, which put a pin in that because I want to talk about that. Super
Yeah.
niche, like something like CD router, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I imagine it still helps though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
would. It
imagine it still
would.
helps.
And again, I think people are just trying to qualify who they're dealing with these days, right?
Mhm.
And there's no single place to qualify a company, right? Unless it's your own
Right.
personal dealings with that company. So
Right.
they're looking for experiences employees have, experiences customers have, what their technology stack is like. Have they had any bad press? So a brand
Oh,
really
cool. Yeah.
it's become really hard to maintain a clean brand these days with so you better be prepared to be authentic, right? Because it's, man.
Is it hard? The dark circles under my eyes.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You know what I realized? I realized it's a lot. It's a lot less. It takes a lot less effort to be authentic, right? Because then you don't
It
have to worry.
really does.
Yes, right.
It
You don't
really
have to
does.
worry about this kind
Oh
of
man.
stuff.
Like, and you get it, right? And that's like half the point of me doing this show is that story,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I've experienced it over and over and over again. Like people really crave it. They
Hmm.
crave it, right? And if
Yeah.
you are genuinely authentic, like people will flock to you.
Yep.
It's
Absolutely.
totally amazing, right? And so I try to do it in standards, right? Not just in standards, but here too, and also like on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
And my first experience with LinkedIn was like, okay, it's everybody just talking about business stuff.
Yep.
But once you start like opening up and being an actual real person, like people like really, everybody wants that,
It's
but
true,
nobody
right?
says that they want it, right?
I think everybody's scared, to be honest,
Yeah.
because they're sitting there thinking, "Oh God, people aren't going to like who we really are." Well,
It's
actually, maybe you
generational
need to.
trauma.
Yeah, it's so true. But if you think about it, I mean, again, generations before us, they didn't want anybody to know about how they didn't want people to know what they were really like. Everything was a facade.
Yeah.
Everything. And that's what marketing was. That's what advertising. For God's sakes, they used to say that they used to, endorse doctors would endorse cigarettes, brands of cigarette smokes. Like, how authentic is that?
Have you
Right?
watched the Fallout series?
I
Have
know,
you?
right? Oh no, I'm halfway through. I'm halfway through with that right
Yeah.
now.
Okay, I won't
But
give it away then.
it's true, right? Where
Yeah.
where now it's like, you know what? It's so much easier to not have any baggage that you're trying to cover up, right? If there's something that you're scared of, well, you better figure out how to put a positive spin out, because sooner or later it's going to come out. And this is what it all comes down to. So I do think that the big push for this decade is going to be authenticity. It's just not even this decade. It seems like nobody can trust anything anymore, and they're tired of it all. They're tired of all the crap and the baggage, and they just want to deal with real people, real companies, who aren't trying to hide that their product sucks, or hide the fact that they're
Right.
right. Just be like, okay, our product sucks, but it does this really good. So
Right. Right.
focus in on just that.
Right.
Right.
Right. Or end up talking like a salesperson. And I talked to Steve about this on the podcast when he was on, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I just want to not be an asshole, right? Like,
Yeah.
because
It's
I
true.
understand what people's perception of salespeople are, right? And he's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
anytime that I can not do that is good for me, right? And it's all about authenticity, especially so. And I wanted to ask you about this, like, we were talking about operators marketing consumers, but the B2B space is where this facade like is sticky. And I
Yes.
really think that people that yeah, when you are marketing to people, right? If you remember that they are in fact human beings that
Mm-hmm.
also have hobbies and lives and
Yep.
want to go home at the end of the day, right? And have a genuine interest in other
Yes.
people's lives, right?
It's shocking, but people don't realize that humans buy from humans. Guess what?
Right.
Like, it's a real thing.
For now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But that full circle. I read an article the other day, and if you can believe, okay, this article, it was so ridiculous. It was the importance of small talk before getting into the business of
Mhm.
and this goes with sales meetings, this goes with presentations, and I can't believe that this was something that needs to be taught. Like, again,
Right.
I mean, I think, dare I say it, like when we get onto our weekly phone calls or our bi-weekly phone calls, the
We
first
spend at
15
least
minutes
15
is
minutes, yeah.
just about catching up about life, kids, Renaissance fairs. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
anything, right?
Yeah.
It's just getting caught up. And again, it's what people, it's where connections are made.
Right, right, right. And
Yeah.
it's a catch-22 for me because like I don't know why I've personally just always been averse to like cheap small talk, like how's the weather, blah
Yeah.
blah. So I always dive into something like super serious. So I'm wondering.
Yeah, no. I get it. It's never okay to talk about the weather, guys. Unless there's a
Yeah,
tornado coming through, it's never okay to talk about the
yeah.
weather.
Well, around here I can because I can always New England, we can always bitch about something. So
Amazing.
I wanted to ask, I put a pin in this.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask how it is that you ended up getting to into the niche that you guys are in, because I think it's really important that companies like zfactor exists and come into what you're doing the way that you do it, right? Because I was
Yeah,
talking
fair.
to Marashlian and Donahue.
Cool.
They're a legal firm, right?
Yep.
And they have carved out this niche in our space, right? Where they deal with
Yep.
broadband service providers and AI
Yep.
law and a bunch of really specific, and they're like, this is our realm, right?
Hmm.
And it's not big, but we're going to do the best we can at exactly this. Did you start that way?
We did, but not in our niche right now, because our niche didn't exist when we started.
Right.
So, long story short, when we started 25 years ago, our agency, I picked up the phone book, and for anybody who doesn't remember, it was like a 2, 3, 5-inch thick yellow book with just every phone number of every business in town and people. Right. I picked
The
it up.
Toronto phone book, right?
Yeah, right. And at the time, there was 34 other advertising agencies at that time. And here we were just like, whoa, what am I gonna do here? Right. And so like, how do you compete in a local market? And back then it was still very local. Things were very hyper local. And what we found is there was this, because, the way I grew up, I was very hands-on. I learned from my father how to do a lot of things, how to fix a lot of things. So I was very comfortable in the B2B manufacturing space. And I was always curious on how things were made. And so I was like, well, listen, there's all these manufacturing companies that none of these agencies want or care about because it's not glitzy, it's not shiny, it's not cool. But to me, that was damn cool, right? And it was easy pickings. It was easy for us to then get into a niche and be like, we're just going to call on everybody that nobody wants. We're going to take the work that nobody wants, and we're going to learn that space inside out. So, we spent the first 5 years of our existence just learning about, injection molding manufacturing, metal forming, like all how things were done.
Right.
And as we developed and as our manufacturers grew, we got into a lot more technology. We started meeting more engineers, right? And, one engineer, you started learning on how their minds worked, right? And these were engineers who were building, automation lines and such, right? Well, sure enough, that translated into engineers then moving into BlackBerry, and BlackBerry was massive for our town. Okay. And BlackBerry, this was before, the iPhone was out, and they just did so much awesome came from that company. The company sucked on a whole, but so much came from that company, right?
I haven't watched the movie yet.
Oh, please don't. It's such a horrible movie. It's heartbreaking because it makes it, while it was a gong show, that movie just makes it seem like a ridiculous gong show. And I think what happened there is just they grew too fast, couldn't keep up. They didn't care about the customers enough. Because they were the only player out there. And so when a company like Apple came along, who's like all about the customer, BlackBerry had no chance, and their technology, it just crashed. There was just so many horror stories about their technology and how they didn't care. They're like, well, sorry, that's our phone. So I'm sorry it's not working for you. You can go buy another one. And you're just like, it's $1,000 phone. And it doesn't work. You're not going to help me. No, sorry. Like, we can't do anything about it. We're too busy. It was just like, wow. Yeah. Needless to say though, so then that BlackBerry relationship, engineers were the same engineers. So then it was a natural progression for us that we started learning about that technology and how that worked. And then that spun off to IoT technology, which was a big place for us. And then from there, we started working with TELUS, which is one of the big telcos up here. And then from there, we started really getting deep into IoT. Right. And how things are connected. So now we're working for a telco. We're learning obviously about, how that world works. Plus we're learning about, the IoT world. And then it just kind of, we were always a niche company, but, the technology stack changed. And then for the past 10, 12 years, it's been basically IoT and broadband technologies. And the benefit, of course, is that, I joke about being able to just pick up what you've learned and just apply it to somebody else. But the reality is, customers, when we bring on new customers, there's little ramp up at all because we understand technology, we understand that space. This is now just something new that feeds into that space. Engineers are exactly the same. They all think the same, and I don't want to generalize, but for the most part, we understand engineers and the problems they face. So all we're doing is now just it's a new product, in a space that we understand, and so ramp up is often very quick for us. Understanding the tech is very quick. We can just jump right in, and there's a huge value to that. We're working with a company right now, one of our customers who's been a customer with us for a long time, and they brought on another third-party company to take care of stuff that we don't. And we're happy to work with these people because we don't want to touch what they're working on. But I forgot what the value is of not needing to be ramped up, because we have spent probably 6 weeks with this company. The customers just wants to go. They just want to get up and go and get the stuff done and start hitting the market running. And it's a lot of hand holding, and it's slowing down, and it's just
ramp up is like the 80-20 rule, right? It's like 80% of your time is that.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. So it kind of re-emphasizes the importance. I am a fan of niche 100%. I will stress it. I will swear by it. I think everybody needs to niche. I think people are too scared to niche because they think that they're narrowing down the market. But this is a global economy. You could pick anything and be successful.
Like even still, and this is something that I feel like you guys have hit home before, or even for us, right? Is you can't try to be everything to everyone.
Exactly.
you will lose your message in the process. It
Yep,
will go.
exactly.
It will go away.
Yeah,
Right.
it's true. You know, and I mean, we took that to the point, even to our podcast, right? And you know, by all means, I mean, I think our podcast, we're in the top 5% globally of podcasts, but you know, we chose a specific niche, graphic designers, and not just that, but ones who are frustrated and ones who just they have something that they just need to get off their chest, and they need to hear somebody else get off their chest. And this
Yeah.
is, we have a very niche market, but again, it doesn't matter how niche you get. There are people that are, and the nice thing is then it's more authentic. Then I'm not trying to
Yes.
be a people pleaser. I am who I
No,
am.
it's
And
totally true. Yeah.
I know we're not for everybody. I know my personality might be little brash, little bold, little in your face, and you know, and we provide incredible work here. But again,
That's what I appreciate about you.
right. And again, but not everybody does, and that's
Yeah.
okay. I'm okay with that because I don't want. You know, there's times in our career where we tried to be what we weren't, and man, did that not work out for us. Oh,
No, it doesn't work. It just happened to my wife with her mobile catering and cocktail service, right? I've the fact that she is taken the steps to establish herself as a premium product and setting and becoming that niche, right? Because
yes,
there would be people who are just looking for bartenders and they don't want to pay a lot of money, and
exactly.
her time is not worth that, right?
Can
So
you
when you
imagine?
establish
Yeah.
yourself, right, as no, this is not for you if you just want blah blah blah. This is if you want cool branding, you want me to be doing the work, all this stuff, right? And it's great.
Yep.
It's great. Now it's more business, right? It's not less.
And that's exactly it. People think that they're turning away business, and yet you are, but you're turning away the wrong business, and you're
Right.
attracting the right business. And like you said, people would think that she's a bartending service, and they would be upset because they're like, "Oh, well, she's too expensive." It's like, well, it's because it's not what we do, right?
Right.
Let us do what we do, and all of a sudden, when people who do, they will seek that out.
Right.
They'll find that niche, and you know, although it might be at a premium price, cheap is often very expensive, right? So go
You heard it here
remember
first,
that.
folks.
Yeah.
Remember that when you're thinking about downloading something open source and just trying to use it.
It's so true, and it's across the board. I'm learning about that so bad everywhere.
Right.
So it's
Well,
absolutely like, if you think I'm expensive, see how much it's going to cost you going with another company and their whole branding process and putting that out in the marketplace, and then seeing what happens a year later. Then let's
right,
talk
right,
about
right.
dollars and cents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for anyone considering zFactor, I will tell you their prices are actually very reasonable. So
Well, ish.
yeah.
Oh, it's
No, I
true.
mean, yeah. No, well, it's also the other thing that I've noticed is sort of and this is to the point of how important it is because my title is technical marketing, right?
Yes.
And that means that I know things,
Hmm. He
right? And
knows things.
I've come through the process of knowing things,
Mhm.
and I end up dealing with other people's marketing PR firms that haven't, right?
Oh,
And
what's
it's
that
work.
like?
Well, so it's work. It's work. It's basically like, I won't name names, but there are
Yes.
certain PR firms or, they are branching out into digital marketing in the sense that they'll write blogs and stuff like that. Um, and they write them and they're terrible. And I have to spend just as much time rewriting it, you
Mm.
know, as it would have been for me to have ChatGPT do it or something, like.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And so it's like that sucks. That sucks. So like when we've carved this niche, and I bring it back to QA Cafe,
Hmm.
too, because one of the things that we do is not just sell this box, right? We don't just sell the software and say see you later. And if you have problems and those problems aren't with the software, but your understanding of what you're trying to do with it, then
Yes.
sorry, right? No, one of the things that you're buying when you buy a QAK product is our support team,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
And we help you not just with, at least for this testing examples, like we don't just help you with getting CD router to work, but telling you what's wrong with your products if you fail a test, right?
Right.
And we can only do that because because we know.
You're selling a lot more than the box. It's kind of like,
Right.
you are selling that whole overall experience. You are helping them, you're walking them through the process, you're providing them, your expertise, your experience, your real life AI that you guys have acquired over the past
Ironically, right? It really is, right?
It absolutely it is, right? So
Yeah,
it's and again, and there's a value to that. There's a huge value to that. Don't
it
fool
is.
yourself. Just because these tools are out there, just because AI is out there, just because Canva's out there and all these tools where people think that they can do their own things in house. They're just tools. They're great tools,
Right.
and in the right hands, they're very
I was going to ask you
powerful.
about that.
Yeah. Oh no. In
You
the
heard
right
my rant
hands.
about how people are threatened by design people who are threatened by AI have just as much to worry about from Canva. So it's like
Oh my God,
just
absolutely.
own
I
it.
hate
Just own it.
Canva. Yeah. The thing about Canva, it's not Canva. Canva's not the problem. It's people using Canva. That's the problem. Because Canva, in the right hands, Canva's pretty powerful.
Right. Right.
Give me an hour in there and
It has all the tools you need in a faster way.
exactly. It is. But just because the tools are there, it still doesn't make you good. I've seen some customers give us things that they put together in Canva. They're horrible.
Of course they're horrible. They don't
Oh,
know like what white space means and
no. But I think that goes without saying across the whole board, because even we've had a lot of talks about AI and chat GPT and a lot of the other LMs out there. They're great and they're a great tool, but if you don't know how to use that tool, the results you're going to have are just going to, you can clearly, I don't know about you, sorry, I can clear as day, make
you
out
can.
AI content, or at least shitty, not properly done, not well, executed AI versus, like human stuff, right? It's kind of a joke out there right now. You can be like,
And
oh yeah, that was
ChatGPT is
written.
super wordy, like you could tell, because it
Oh my
for
God.
some reason it loves to get flowery on you.
Oh my God. Anytime I ask it a question, I have to remind it. Just
And you're like,
be
yo, just
concise.
give me
Give me the points.
that's a great and good looking question, Massimo.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's amazing.
um no, it got me thinking about that because it's it's it really is the same thing it really is all about the human experience, right? And so
Absolutely, it
we
is.
found a couple of anecdotes about that, right? So we have not necessarily competitors, right? So like we compete for test dollars, right? For
Hmm.
budget. We compete for budget, not necessarily the
Oh, good.
same
Interesting.
thing being done, but we compete for budget, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of tools out there that are old and have been
Hmm.
acquired and have been brought up over time. A lot of testing tools are really, really terrible when it comes to
Ah,
the UI,
yes.
right? They do what they do well, but like the UI and the way that connections work and the way that you get things to work is so old that like it's a very bad experience. And so
Mm.
we at QA Cafe, what we try and excellent. That's why I feel like we get along so well is because one of the things that we try to do here is show you what your experience can be if you actually pay attention to
Yeah.
UX when you're doing your test tools, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Right. And so like we're thinking about all sorts of stuff in the future about that, right? And again, you got to think about the end user. They're a person.
Yep.
They have a job to do in a certain amount of time. That certain amount of time is dependent on whether or not they get home to their kids or go have a beer,
Hmm.
like,
It's
right?
true.
And so trying to, we call it simplifying complex processes. But what
Yeah.
we're really saying is that this world of test and of network test and analysis is so complicated
Yes.
that we understand that it sucks. So how can we present that to you in a way to make it suck a lot less, right? How can we give you the information you're looking for in the fastest way possible, right?
I
And we
love that.
kind of keep that in mind with all of our products going forward, right? And when we're thinking in the future, because we're thinking about AI too, right?
Yeah.
We're thinking about what can we do to so that maybe CD router itself can tell you why your product failed a test. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It makes sense. I
Yeah.
love that mantra though, how to make that complex problem suck less.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
That's our new. That's our scrap the old branding. We're
Patent that. Get that trademark right away, quick.
Making automated broadband CPE testing suck less.
Suck less. Oh, I love it. Oh, it's so true though, dude. You know, people, even the smartest of people are probably pretty apprehensive about new technology they don't understand. I'm sure engineers, maybe not about technology, but new processes they don't understand. I'm sure that they could get frustrated.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to reprogram that damn number on an 80s VHS machine, right? That's stressful. Yeah. People don't like that.
Yeah.
So
can you imagine like a modern 22-year-old test engineer trying to deal with a VCR?
No, God.
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
No, I know. But I think, if you can kind of, reduce those processes, streamline them, simplify them, and just give them enough, to get people at a comfortable state, right? I think that's a huge, I find across the board, actually, software technology, they try to overwhelm people. They'll have something that does 30 different things. And they try to teach people all 30 things at the same time. And I kind of wish they would take a different approach and, and just be like, listen, you came to us, we do 30 things, but let's just focus on this one. And when you get really good at that one, we're going to open up 2 more that complement it. And we're going to explain why it complements it, how it complements it. And then once you've got 3, because I feel that, there'll be less churn. I mean, I have so many apps that we use for our business, for our podcast, for just life. I don't use 2/3 of the features.
It's totally true. I'm exactly the same.
I don't, because I don't know what they do. And they expect you to be so invested in wanting to. There is something to be said about it's absolutely where if you were to take a different approach and just kind of ease people into it, I bet you then I would find. I mean, I have this smart ring. It's a ring. How much data could it possibly get? But there's about 50 different things that I just bought it for sleep tracking and for my heart rate.
Right.
And apparently there's about 50 other things I'm missing out on. But I can't. I would have to go to school for weeks to learn.
No,
this.
It's true, and even like really simple stuff, right? Because I have kids. I have a 4-year-old. I don't have an hour to play around with something that I just bought.
Right?
No,
yeah,
I don't.
So the funny thing is, this ring, I would have paid the exact same amount of money, even if it only did those 2 things I bought for it. Nothing else, right? If it did those 2 things well, and the app did those 2 things well, I would be just as happy. But instead,
totally true.
Instead, I have this ring that I paid all this money for, and it does 2 things okay-ish, and they keep trying to push me 30 other things that I have no interest in. So, get rid of those 30 things.
I
Focus
get angry
on these.
I get angry with Amazon Echo about that, with Alexa about that, right? Because I would love to sit there and explore everything it can do. It frustrates me that they haven't tried to actually build in actual learning models to it yet.
Yep.
Because half the reason why it sucks at what it does is because it doesn't do what you would expect an AI to do, right?
Yes.
It's just kind of okay,
yeah.
right? And so all I use it for really is adding things to my grocery list.
You found something useful.
Oh,
that's brilliant, dude.
If I just had a thing. If it was just my refrigerator that let me add things to a grocery list and see it on an app,
that'd be great. See, just that. And again, people would pay. I'd pay $2 a month for that, right? I know my wife would for sure with all the kids and managing that. Get us something, build it into I don't care, and charge me $2 a month, and you'll have us for life. Instead, they want to charge you $20 a month, where I'm still going to use only the $2 a month plan that I'm hoping to use, and then offer these other things.
It's totally true. Yeah.
I don't give a crap about.
Yep.
Oh man. See, we just solved all of technology's problems.
We did,
right here,
but it's great because we brought it full circle because it really is all about niche and focusing and April Dunford product positioning.
So true.
Which is we could do a whole show about that. I've learned so much through that process. It's really fun.
Yeah, it is.
Now I feel like I'm constantly applying it to my life. Right.
Nice. Oh, jeez.
Cool, dude. All right. Well, honestly, thank you for
buddy,
everything you do and for getting
there's no need.
Getting me to
fun.
keep up with it.
Yeah. Well, you're past that. You're past that hump now. So now we just gotta, just get it everywhere, get it out. I mean, the information, the interviews have been so good. So yeah, keep going. This is just fun. It's liberating. And again,
It is
it's that
fun.
whole, yeah, it's fun. And you're approaching things from a different angle. You're keeping it human, right? It's a huge value. It's a huge value for the company. Absolutely. So good on you for doing this, bud.
Yeah.
I've noticed a huge growth in you since you started this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So yeah. Even just your approach to this, and how you're, from the first podcast till now, but even just overall, it's like you're owning this. So good on you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, in retrospect, please go listen to the Angry Designer podcast because you'll see
Yeah.
where I get my inspiration from.
Where you
Although
get I appreciate that.
they someday I'll actually drink whiskey on the show too, but I need to have in-person guests. I need somebody like Sean that's like always here.
That's always there, just kind of hanging out, willing
Yeah.
to jump in on a little bit of bourbon. I love it.
Cool, dude. All right. So
All right, buddy.
let's do this again. I'd love to be on yours too. We can talk about this same stuff.
Talk about
my experiences, like as somebody who's tried to come into marketing for B2B customers.
Oh, geez, tell me about it, right? Holy jeez.
Yeah,
there's a lot that we can talk about there.
Right. So like us, subscribe, hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. That's how it works. Please comment on things. As we found out, that's how social media really works, is by people having conversations on things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And above all, just like us, own the nerdy things that you love and have fun doing them.
Own them. Own the nerdy things you love. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Bye, dude.
See you, dude.